We are back on MorningLine. Nick Barris here. It's live, and you're looking at some video from yesterday taken by Sky 5 over, obviously, the flood-damaged area there in Humphreys County, the Waverly area, McEwen, and elsewhere, but Waverly hardest hit, and that's the topic of our show today. We just got done talking with Humphreys County Sheriff Chris Davis, kind of filling us in on the very latest on this, and the first responders and everyone working 24/7. The priority remains right now, locating those who are unaccounted for. He believes it is now below 20 people, but still the concern that maybe someone is out there pinned and can't move and get out. Of course, the sad part of this is it's likely more bodies will be found. The death toll at this point is 22, many of them children, which is heartbreaking. Just horrible. But this is the aftermath from Sky 5 showing how things went down yesterday. We're going to take some of your phone calls this morning, and we may later in the program check in with Lelan Statom, who was out there this morning. But let's go to Hunter. Hunter, good morning, Hunter.
Good morning, Nick.
Hey, what's on your mind?
Well, I will tell you this: the two twins that passed away this weekend, we actually knew the parents ourselves.
Oh, you knew the parents? Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
It's just
they
awful.
Actually came to my sister's. It is. They actually came to my sister's wedding last summer, and it hit us even harder.
I just can't imagine. I mean, like I said, all the loss of life is tragic, but when you look at you know, two 7-month-old twins, there was a 7-year-old, there's a 2-year-old still missing, that breaks your heart. These are children, their lives are just getting started, and can you think how terrifying it would have been? The twins, you know, didn't maybe know they're so young, but for a 7-year-old to get caught in that water, and how terrifying it must have been.
Yeah, the devastation that we just had in Humphreys County is devastating, but I know when I was a child, if I remember correctly, it was, I think I was in 3rd grade or 2nd grade, that big tornado that came through downtown Nashville.
Right.
That blew the stars out of the state flag.
Right.
I was at school when that came down through.
Yeah.
And I was still a young child. So just to put it in perspective, as a young child, devastation, you'll remember it.
You'll never forget that. Yeah, the children that survived and the people, you'll never forget what you just went through. Were you here also for the 2010 flood in Nashville?
I took photos of my backyard, and I was trying to send it to you guys to, yeah. I mean, I've lived in Nashville my entire life, and I took the 2-hour course through the National Weather Service, and I've tried to save people's lives by posting, hey, we got broad rotation to the National Weather Service, and they've actually kept a closer eye on it. But yeah, the 2010, I was watching my backyard, the water creeping up.
Yeah. And what's
my creek?
Yeah, and Hunter, and I appreciate your call, Hunter. Yeah, and as we said earlier, and I'm going to ask our next guest here in a moment about this, that was not even as much rain as they just got this weekend over there in the McEwen and Waverly area. And in fact, to talk more on that, and thank you for your call, Hunter. Let's go to Lelan Statom, who was out this morning there in Waverly. Can you hear me all right, Lelan?
Yes, I can.
Hey, I appreciate you taking some time out. You know, for you, we show the images on TV in Sky 5, but wouldn't you agree that when you're there on the ground and you see it for yourself, it hits home even more?
Oh, yeah, it does, because, yeah, it's one thing to see it and see it as being from somewhere else, but when you're here on the ground and you realize what the people themselves have gone through, and right now it's heartbreaking because you still have about 30 or so who are still missing right now?
I think it's under 20 now, as we just got off the phone with the sheriff just before you, and he's saying they got it under 20, but still, that's a lot of people missing.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, right now we think the death toll is around 20 or 21. And so you hope those people are going to be found, but I'm with Aaron Cantrell and Brady, who's our photojournalist this morning, and we were just talking to a person who owns a business here, and they're trying to get some people together to go help search, because there's a mom right now who is still missing and trying to find where her baby is at this particular point.
Oh, gosh, I can't. Let me ask you this, Lelan, from the weather standpoint. We know how much fell. It's just devastating. Records were set. I'm trying to remember, what did we know about what the weather system looked like coming into the weekend? I think everyone in our weather center was aware of the fact that there might be some rain, but just like back in 2010, no one anticipated a deluge like we got. What did we see coming in, and how did it develop? Yeah, go ahead.
The area had been put under a flash flood watch Friday afternoon.
Okay.
So there had been some rain earlier, and by Friday afternoon, Maurice Smith talked about on the news Friday night and sent out a note to the newsroom that this area that we're in is under a flash flood watch, and that there would be the possibility of not just flooding but flash flooding, and it's the flash flooding that's the dangerous thing in all of this. So. But yeah, Nick, it's hard to say you're going to end up with 17 inches. With a great flood, there was thoughts that we might have some heavy rainfall, but still it was hard to say that there was going to be 13 inches of rain to fall over a 2-day period.
Right.
So it's just very hard. Right now we're in Storm 5 Titan. We're actually driving through the housing project, which is where we think some of the younger children may have perished.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that, because I was trying to get some information from the sheriff along those lines. That's back behind a Dollar General there, isn't it? And can you give me an idea, what does it look like there, and what's the proximity to the creek that apparently, flooded out?
It's very close to the creek. There's actually a creek that looks like it goes right behind it, and the homes themselves, usually with this type of complex, they are duplexes. Actually, it reminds me of one that I lived in as a child. Mm-hmm. And so you've got an apartment on one side, one on the other side, and they're just a row of this very similar looking brick houses. And when we drove through there, the walls had been knocked out, and these are brick. So walls had been knocked out. And it's behind the Dollar General, behind the Cash Saver. And we were just talking to a gentleman who was telling us that he thinks the water was up to a certain point. So I don't know if we're going to stop here to get the video or anything, but you're more than welcome to do that. We're driving around right now trying to figure out what we need to do before we head back in for me to do Talk of the Town.
Gotcha.
But if we need to grab video, do what y'all need to do, and I'll continue with you. But it's just a very heartbreaking and devastating situation here. And you think about these folks who are still trying to find family members, and it's one thing to rebuild from home and furniture and stuff. It's a whole different thing when lives are involved.
Oh, you're right. And Lelan, just if you would, we use the phrase a lot sometimes, and fortunately it doesn't happen to that degree sometimes. What's the definition of flash flood? How fast?
Basically, a flash flood is when, and it doesn't have to be to this extent. A flash flood is when there is a creek, when there is a stream, usually not a river. The Cumberland River doesn't usually have a flash flood, nor does the Mississippi. Those are river floods. But it's on a smaller creek, a smaller stream, where it rains so much the water can't stay in the banks, and so it just comes out. And so it comes out in an instant, and the rain stops, and the flooding goes away. So that's why it's a flash flood, because in the middle of the height of the rain, there is water all over the road. The rain stops and the water recedes. So that's why it's called a flash flood. A river flood is a bit more prolonged, where you can see it coming for days and then it sinks slowly for days.
Yeah, like when they say a river's going to crest, you can prepare for that. But on this, I heard that area you're in, there was 4 feet of water on them in an instant, and that's why they had no time to react.
Yeah, we were at this Dollar General and Cash Saver, and there was a gentleman that was telling us that water may have been several feet deep. There was another gentleman who was telling us that there was water waist deep in a couple of areas. And you may have seen the home that we were at earlier on the morning show.
Yep.
We found out after the fact that there was actually someone who perished in that house. We talked about the fact that there was a car in that house. Unfortunately, a woman was trapped underneath the car and drowned.
Oh, gosh, that's awful. Lelan, just as we wrap this up, you and I have talked about it before, and I think you might have agreed with me, but in my opinion, and you and I have covered over the years our share of disasters, everything for me, forest fires, huge fires in Laguna Beach, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes. To me, the most devastating of any of them is a flood. And it's not necessarily for loss of life, in my opinion, but the fact is you not only have to deal with the immediate danger, and a lot of the damage we see there in Humphreys County at first now looks like maybe a tornado came through. But it's worse than that, because in the aftermath of a tornado, all right, you have the structures down, you clean it up. But in the aftermath of a flood, everything is drenched, everything is wet, everything is ruined. I think floods are the most devastating of all disasters.
Now, I think you're right, because you think in a hurricane, people often think about the wind, and we talk about the wind, but within a hurricane, it's the flooding, the seawall,
yes,
the rising water that does the most damage. And that's the situation here, because, a lot of this stuff that has been touched by flood water, for the most part, has to be just destroyed and started anew, especially in some of the lower parts. And so it's just hard for these folks. And the other thing, too, is when it comes to insurance, because the question will come up, do they have regular insurance or is there flood insurance? And, not everybody has flood insurance. We had this P.2 seat behind us on the morning show. Mm-hmm. One of the high school teachers was telling me, he said that the guy who owns that lives a couple of blocks away. He's got insurance on his home. He said they don't have it on the feeding seat because it sits up on a platform that's a couple of feet high. And they were told that because it sits up on that platform that they should be okay, and they didn't take out flood insurance. And so that's going to be key, and especially you get in a rural area where many more may not have any, just even rental insurance.
Yep. So what you're saying is there are people out there who clearly are going to have lost everything and have no means to replace it. And that's part of what's just awful. At least they can thank themselves for being alive, because we know so many people lost their lives, but it's going to be a hardship for an awful lot of people. Leland, listen, thank you. And I guess the one last thing as we leave you, there's no chance of more rain, at least coming later this week to that area, is there?
No, the good news right now for the next 2 days, we've got hot weather. We'll deal with a heat index over the triple digits again, so they'll deal with hot weather. Then we'll watch the moisture levels rebuild for the end of the week. And so with that, scattered showers and thunderstorms begin to move back in.
Gotcha. Leland, thank you again for joining us. I know you had a busy morning, but we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick.
All right. Lelan Statom still there in Waverly after going live in the morning show, giving us some insight into all of that. And yeah, he's right. It's going to be a while, and now the cleanup, and it may not be raining anymore, but can you imagine the heat and humidity, and these folks working out there, they're going to need to stay hydrated, and they're going to need replacement troops. We'll let you know when they put out a call for organized efforts of volunteers, and that time will come, but maybe not yet as they continue to look for those who are still missing. Listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, James and Ann, some of you were holding and you hung up because you knew we were going to Leland for a while there. But we'll get back and take your phone calls. We'd love to hear from you. 737-7587. More of the very latest information coming into me right now from out there as well. And we'll show you more of the video exclusive from Sky 5 right after this of the devastating flood.
This Storm 5 weather update is sponsored by Mark Spain Real Estate.
I'm News Channel 5 weekday morning meteorologist Nikki D. Ray. Here's a live look at the currents right here in Music City. You'll notice the Power 5 radars getting a much needed break as far as rain is concerned. We've got some dry days heading our direction that will definitely help with cleanup. The heat and humidity will be on as we go throughout the next several days. I mean, you step outside right now and you already can tell temperatures are warming on up. As we head throughout the afternoon, Nashville will top out 93 degrees. Of course, it'll feel a few degrees warmer than that. Here's a look over the next 7 days. We're dry today, we're dry tomorrow. Temperatures will continue to climb. Wednesday peaking around 95. Slim chance for 1 or 2 isolated showers. Prime locations will be down to our south and east. Then scattered showers are back in the forecast on Thursday, bring a little rumble of thunder. Highs will reach 91. Friday, another chance for some scattered activity, but not looking at a complete.
There is no single answer to securing your financial future. You need to look at it from every side. Get dependable advice you can count on every week with the Retirement Report on News Channel 5 Plus. Experts on finance, taxes, and the legal system are ready to answer your questions. Don't wait to make a plan for your money. The Retirement Report, Friday mornings at 8 and at these encore times on News Channel 5 Plus.
Here at Pruitt's Discount Pharmacy, we want to be a part of your healthcare family. I'm Dr. Sean Pruitt, and let me show you what I mean. We accept every major insurance, but if you're uninsured, we understand. At Pruitt's Discount Pharmacy, we offer lower prices for you so you can afford the medicines that you need. And you don't even have to live nearby. We offer citywide free delivery from Hendersonville to Antioch. Get to know us at Pruitt's Discount Pharmacy. Join our family and
feel good.
That's Pruitt's Discount Pharmacy, the pharmacy choice for the uninsured.
We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Nick Barris here on a Monday, 2 days after the devastating floods hit just east of the city here over in Humphreys County, or excuse me, west of the city, in Humphreys County, McCune City, Waverly City. A lot of them got record-setting rainfall, and Sky 5's images of the damage in the aftermath, as there's so much work to be done now. And as I was telling to Lelan, and we want to take your phone calls, 737-7587. If you live in this area, you've been through your share of disasters. I maintain, having sat through and covered many of these, that floods are the worst. And the death toll, 22, is what we understand. It looks like just under 20, according to our conversation with the sheriff at the beginning of the show now. At one point, there were more than 40 unaccounted for. Now it's under 20, and he's hopeful that more people who have information on the missing, and there's a list online of the names of the people missing. If they're accounted for, please call and let the sheriff know. If they're still missing, let them know that as well, as they'll continue searching the area, for any survivors or possibly bodies. Let's go back to the phone lines, and we'll go next to James. James, good morning. Hi, James.
Good morning to you on this sunny but sad day.
Yes, yep. I agree.
I've got two comments.
Okay.
I got into the show a little bit later. Somebody might have already mentioned this, but here goes. Two comments. The first one is, why doesn't the Tennessee National Guard have 1,000 boots on the ground with trucks, tents, tractors, generators, and medical stations? And the other comment is, the Army Corps of Engineers need to deepen, widen, and fortify that creek that keeps running over. It'll accept more rain runoff.
Yep.
That's all I got.
I gotcha. Listen, those are two good questions, James. I can't give you a definitive answer on the National Guard. I think that is an option. Were some of them there yesterday? They toured it yesterday. All right. So the governor was there yesterday along with some lawmakers, and they toured it, and it's definitely a disaster area. At some point here, aside from federal aid, there'll be state aid, and my guess is, if needed for the cleanup as we move forward, the Guard may be called in. That's a distinct possibility. The issue right now, at least it's still acute, is finding the remaining missing. And so I'm not sure that they've gotten to that point yet, but I'm not ruling that out as a possibility, and certainly the governor is well aware of the situation. So that, who knows, could be announced today. As far as the Army Corps of Engineers and the creek, look, you're right, and that area is flooded. But what we're seeing here, in part because of global warming and other issues like building in floodplains and lack of area where water can go, are historic floods happening in a non-historic manner. I mean, the flood 10 years ago, or I guess 11 years ago here in Nashville, was considered the 1,000-year flood. Well, we just got, 11 years later, another 1,000-year flood there in Humphreys County. So something has changed. We get periods now of, instead of light drizzle over a period of days, a deluge in one day. And it's devastating. So I don't disagree with him that creek and where you build and depth, but I don't know, when you're getting 17 inches in 5 hours, whether or not that makes a difference with that little creek that flooded and washed out those apartments that swept away those kids. I just don't know. I mean, what do you do in situations like this? I think at this point, I'm going to think twice before I live near any body of water, like a creek or something like that, because in this day and age, floods are going to happen, and I don't know how you stop it. Nature is changing, folks. Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning. Hi, Joe.
Hello, Nick.
Hey.
Hey, I'm just listening. I've been around 80 years, and I've never witnessed the devastation that we're having with these floods and stuff. It's just so out of the ordinary. I can't really understand it. Besides that, and the COVID, and these fires other places, I just can't comprehend what's happening. It's a regular thing, and they used to, like you said, maybe every so many years you'd have a flood, but nothing to this magnitude and loss of life. And it's just baffling to me that even beside the United States and other places, these things are happening. And it's hard to understand what's going on here. I don't know the answer to it.
Well, I think you do. I think you do. I mean, the climate is changing. Now, with regard to COVID and things like that, that's different. But these fires and the drought that leads to the fires and extreme rain like this, anyone who doesn't think there's climate change has their head in the sand, okay? Anyone who doesn't think some of these extreme temperatures and weather patterns we're seeing, anyone who says, oh, it's just a cycle, it comes around, you're wrong. And listen to Joe here. He's been around for more than 80 years and has never seen anything like this. Things are changing climate-wise, and it's not good. Joe, would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I'm tired of people disagreeing with that, and frankly, they're all wrong.
I've been in the hospital, and my wife's in the hospital, and they don't even have room.
I'm sorry.
She's been in the emergency room since yesterday, and she's still there, and they don't even have a room to put her in.
And she's not there for COVID, is she?
No.
She's there for something else, but the COVID patients are taking up all the space.
Well, they don't even have room for COVID patients.
I know, but all the beds are taken by COVID patients.
Well, that's what's causing it, yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I mean, people don't seem to realize these people are not getting their vaccinations, and
they're selfish.
They
are selfish. They're selfish.
They're I don't know. I mean, looks like a guy like Phil Valentine. There's a guy who was in good health, I think.
Yeah, it's tragic.
And he did.
Yep.
Because he didn't get a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is wrong with people's minds?
I don't know. And Joe, listen, I'm sorry to hear about your wife and your situation there. Yeah, and that's a whole different issue. But what's wrong with people's minds? It is scary sometimes when you consider the decisions people make and what they're based on, be it politics, incredibly stupid stuff that is shared. And people are saying, no, I'm not going to go for a vaccine, and they're injecting themselves with a parasitic used in horses, to kill parasites. I have a friend whose father was a veterinarian and said, no, I don't trust the vaccine. I'm gonna take care of myself with vitamin D and this horse parasitic. He's on his deathbed in the hospital right now with COVID. How did that horse parasitic work? He doesn't have worms, but he's got COVID. Mind-numbing. Absolutely mind-numbing. And the tragedy of Phil Valentine, someone I know, and that's very sad. And he, after he got sick, changed his mind and, through his family said that he wanted to be vaccinated. But, before he got it, I don't know that he would have listened to someone else in his same situation telling him that. And it cost Phil Valentine his life. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more of your calls as we're talking about the flood right after this.